Anyways, so the constitutional provision that they repeatedly asked me to work on has to do with biofeedback and parole, and it's very complicated meditation and stuff. So they like I said, they repeatedly asked me to work on it. It's very complicated. And then they just began to assault me very badly just as soon as I even just started to think about it. And it was an extremely vicious assault, okay? And that was, honestly, they've been viciously assaulting me left and right. Well, especially today, I don't know, for whatever fucking reason. But I will tell you, anything that has to do with that is just, it's totally insane, you know? It's like, that was the one that was going to be the most complicated, and then ask me to work on it repeatedly. This is the only thing that they asked me repeatedly to work on. The only thing. Okay? Anything else, I mean, I wound up working on all of it. That took me a little bit longer, so I was thinking, well, I'm probably procrastinating on that one because it's going to be very difficult to get that correct. And still, I'm not going to be able just to get it correct until I see some scientific studies. Anyways, I might be able to put something in writing that will guide it to say that, well, the study needs to go like this and the results need to go like this, and then you can make your determination out of that. And that'll probably work. But, ultimately, it needs to be, something more concrete than that. So, but, even just any level of thinking about it, even just to consider just putting it out there like that, I think would be a good start, but they won't even let me think about it, They won't let me really think about anything that has to do with it at all. They won't let my mind wander, and even if I'm incorrect, they could say, which they always do, it's like, no, that's not, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And then they'll help me understand why sometimes, if I don't understand already, And so, but anyways, yeah, it's, that's not what they're doing now. It's just, I definitely don't think it has anything to do with me not knowing how to do it, so and what I'm going to do is essentially this is just, so just what we're going to do is take a group of people that have a ranging IQs, and then we're going to create the biofeedback device. The thing about it is that the biofeedback device is already out there, but the app, and we can do our own biofeedback device, but the app is just, I already know how it needs to function. It's very similar to the Muse app, which actually it's not because they screwed that up, but in essence, it's still the same as what it is now. It just, and there's a mathematical formula. I think I figured out what it was to say, how the brain waves can be translated into like a determination of how you meditate. You know what I mean? Like, at what level are you meditating right now? And then what it does is it plays back the sound of a rainforest, and then whenever your mind gets quiet, the rainforest gets quiet. But the difference is between the way that she does it and the way that it needs to be done is that it needs to have manual calibration. With manual calibration, you'll be able to say, if you're a novice, you might be like, set it at like level, 50 if it's 1 to 100, or 10 if it's 1 to 20, or whatever it is, But so, but or maybe even not even that. But the main difference between what that is and what Muse is doing is that Muse is doing like automatic calibration where it just listens to you. listens to your brain for a few seconds and then decides where to set the resistance rather than let you set it yourself, which is just, you cannot get the same experience if you don't set it yourself, you know. And you may want to have the automatic calibration option, you know, but if you do it like that, then it needs to say you've been set to this level. So then you can kind of figure out, well, I don't like that level, you know, I don't like the way that it came out this time. I'm going to try this one, you know, and then adjust it, you know, yourself. That would be that right there would, and I'll just tell you, I was able to adjust the calibration myself by adjusting. See, she went and screwed it up where I couldn't even do it anymore because I was telling the company about this. It's a woman who owns it, so it's a woman's instinct to try to squash men that have ambition and stuff like this. But the point of the story is just, but as far as that's concerned, you know, the way that I was making it work was, I was telling them they needed to, but I shouldn't even. But either ways, you know, but the way that it works is, you know, or the way that it did work was you just, you know, turn the lights off for like half, or keep the lights on, but shut your eyes like for half of it. And then the resistance, you can adjust it like that. And then if you want to keep your eyes shut the whole time, you know, you can't just do that. What the experience I had was you couldn't just do that starting off in the day. You know, early in the day, you couldn't just, you know, keep your eyes shut throughout the entire calibration and then be able to keep it calm, you know, at the calm level. And so, you know, where the rainforest is quiet and stuff. But what I would do is, after that, then I would turn the lights in the room off and then keep my eyes open and then do it. And then that would be a little bit more, you know, and then I would shut my eyes in the dark and calibrate that way. And it would take me like 2 hours of meditation to get to that point, but I could do it, you know, in 2 hours. And so what I'm saying is by the time I was doing that, I was essentially just having to keep my mind extremely quiet, you know. So, but with regard to the parole thing, you know, they the resting state of a Buddhist monk is deeper, lower than the average person in meditation. So even with that being said, over time that does, you know, in a day you can get to the point where you're that far below your baseline, but your baseline is gonna get, you know, over time, you know. So, but anyways, yeah. So, anyways, I was gonna say something else. Yeah, we probably can't let them have access to the biofeedback device that day, right? That's what I think, because you don't want them to lower that baseline, like artificially. You just want to know where it's at on the day that they test. But it doesn't really matter how you want to do it, because if they can meditate at a certain level, if they can, like if you were to say 1 to 100 and bring them all the way down to like 30, and then say, well, he can meditate actually at that level, and they can note that and see that, then that dude's done a lot of meditation, you know. So, so you may not even need much more verification than that. But all that stuff, we don't really know what that looks like yet. So once we have a chance to, you know, put that on paper and say, you know, I might do something like, I'll talk to them and see what they want, because they're not being very clear about any of it. And if anything, they're just assaulting the shit out of me for the most part, just to even think about it. I don't even understand that. But either way, what I had thought was, whatever we can determine is the amount of meditation, whatever 1 hour per day creates on average among all of the study participants, on average among all of them, I think that's probably a pretty good determination of what we need to say is, and it may take some time, possibly the best way to put it would just be to say, but I don't know, because it's going to be different. It's going to be different for all of them. And another thing is once you're at a certain level, like, of meditation, I'm not so sure that you're going to be able to get the same gains every day. You know what I mean? So in other words, like, when you first start off meditation, you might be able to go from meditating at this resistance level down to this really fast, because essentially you're just unpracticed, and now you're just, accelerating very fast. But what I'm saying is that once you get down to a certain level, does that same improvement occur, And then what if the guy's already into meditation? You know what I mean? Then what kind of improvement are we looking for? All of that kind of stuff is going to be really important to think about, and they won't even let me think about it. At the end of the day, they may be wanting me to get, like, some access to like some studies, using this kind of device. Because with the device, they can really make some serious improvements. And I think we should kind of hold them to it, If we can make it easy to have those kind of improvements, then we could really get some serious improvement out of people, So, yeah. But yeah, there's going to be a lot to think about there. And then if they've made parole once, and then they reoffended within, a year, do we let you make it the next parole because of meditation? Well, last time it didn't prove too much, and we may put something in there about that, that the same requirements aren't going to be there, But anyways, but either ways, but we want to bring them to a point where they are different, and actually we can do it, it's amazing. We can do a lot actually with meditation. Socially, they'll be more, intelligent. Their social intelligence goes up. That goes up significantly, as well as a lot of other stuff. But, just the health of the brain in general is better. And less reactive, less reactive a lot, and social intelligence, left prefrontal cortex, that's just astronomically improved in people that do a lot of meditation. But with regard to like Buddhist monks, it's crazy. But with regard to the amygdala, which is your fight or flight response, becomes a lot weaker. The hippocampus becomes a lot stronger. As far as I understand, that's emotional regulation. And so, yeah, we'll get huge improvements out of them, you know, for that kind of stuff. And I believe that if we can get the right equipment in there and the right, you know, software, and get them access to it, and get them some quiet spaces where it's kind of dim and all this kind of stuff. You know, with that kind of requirement and that kind of tracking, personally believe that that we can turn a criminal into an honest, hardworking member of society. Honestly, I really believe it. So, anyways.